task, and particularly in Lagos and Abuja, have the opportunity to reach all of these contacts, make sure they are okay, and those that have any symptoms, bring them into as quickly as possible. Having said, as important as Mr. President's speech is, I think now is a time to and to do not only what the President has asked you to do, but what Nigerians need to do for themselves. So in carrying out the measures employed by Mr. President, we need to think across the country. What do we need to do for ourselves? Do we have to really meet? Do we want to break regulations and go out and meet secretly and come out in gatherings? We will be destroying the efforts we are making collectively. So please, Nigerians, I think now is the point not only to do what you've been asked to do for the next few weeks, that we'll have a small chance of containing this outbreak. That's why in collaboration with every communication group in Nigeria, we've launched a campaign on taking responsibility. It's called #TakeResponsibility, because we really need every citizen to be part of this effort, to hold ourselves accountable, to enforce the social distancing. If we're not in contact with each other, that virus cannot be among us. To keep it out, we have to and try and suppress the circulation of this outbreak. This is our strategy at the moment, while bringing everyone in contact into care, everyone that these two parallel to work with us. And that's what we'll keep working on over the next 2 weeks as we work very hard to see whether we can bend the curve, get this outbreak under control, and get back to day-to-day life. Thank you.
We shall now take the news operation. After him, the Minister of Foreign Affairs will come to the podium. But before we do that, let me remind Nigerians that we are also broadcasting in Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, and Fuji on FRC and Igbo. Please continue.
Gentlemen of the media, good afternoon. Thank you very much. We in civil aviation take this campaign extremely very seriously, because we provide platforms for work, interact, and continue their journeys from one point to another. For that reason, all airports have been closed to contain this evil, including local airports, arising from the intent of government to continue to keep close tab on this disease and to exterminate it. However, certain flights that are considered to be essential will continue to happen. So Nigerians will continue to see aircraft flying. But those aircraft are qualified. Aircraft in distress, looking for a landing site to save life, is allowed. Aircraft on technical stop, meaning that an aircraft overflying perhaps the airspace of Nigeria, needing to stop to pick fuel somewhere and continue with the journey. Perhaps it's traveling to supply some medical equipment to some countries and some communities. That kind of technical evacuation would be allowed. And also cargo will be allowed. These cargo are essential cargo, not just any cargo. Certain diplomatic flights will be allowed. Certain humanitarian flights, those bringing in food items and other humanitarian supplies, medicines, medical equipment, etc., etc., and also security flights. In all of these flights, we have set out protocols to which are well publicized, and we have also tweeted them. Example of them, if there's a flight on ground, all the pilots must remain on board. Assuming there is a cargo coming in from so we start the process early, but they must go through 4 affairs. Ditto, all security flights must pass through the Office of National Security Advisor. Equally, we can be copied, so we can start to get ready early. Now, some of the essential flights that we have done and to raise some questions. There's a flight of communication equipment that ought to be in the country to sustain one of the companies providing communications. We allowed that flight to come in, but the pilots remained on board, pilots and engineers remained on board. So also we allowed one NNPC flight to come in because one of our national assets producing 10% of national revenue was at the risk of being closed. So we consider it very essential on the count. And if there's any question, we provided, and I also tweeted my numbers and that of the Permanent Secretary and the Director General of Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. We're more than happy to answer your questions on WhatsApp or email. Thank you very much indeed.
Ladies and gentlemen, to listen to what we have to say in the context of this this terrible scourge that we have in the country. Suffering. Also for us, practices from what other done and should have done, and that's something that we're aggressively doing. You know, keeping in touch with foreign countries, and of course also has mentioned the diplomatic corps. Of ours. Want to leave, so we are cooperating with facilitate this possibility for those who want to leave. But constituency also because they want to help us at this very difficult time in our country. So there's a lot of assistance that they're also very keen to provide. And in touch with the various countries and technical assistance and other assistance for us during this period. And I would really like to thank them because they have been extremely supportive during this period and to help us through it. We're also engaging foreign countries, providing of countries, and we're a lot of the countries that we're looking to for assistance are also facing huge challenges themselves, but nevertheless,
yes.
it clear that medical doctors available, especially some countries that have already gone through this experience, and that kind of support would be absolutely invaluable for us. And we, of course, saw the situation where some countries were facilitating an emergency airlift that we carried out to bring back some Nigerian resources to come and help in this fight. So, you know, we are fully engaged, working full-time. And we're engaging to try to leverage on all those during this very dire times.
Thank you very much. We have received the reports, the statements of the Secretary of Government, Mr. Chairman, we have listened to the Minister of Health, listened to the Director General of the NCDC, as well as the Ministers of Aviation and Foreign Affairs. In order to make your ability to ask questions very most clearly, make a good mention of those who are sitting around and direct questions. Anyone who have
Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development. We also have the Minister of Information and Culture. Well, you have seen the Minister of Foreign Affairs, you have seen the Minister of Aviation, we have the Minister of Interior and the Minister of State for Health. So, it's now question time. This is how we proceed. You come up to the microphone. Please don't touch this microphone for your own safety. And we have indications that there will be 8 questions in the first wave, after which the ministers will answer those questions. And then we come back, second wave, which could be your follow-up or the feedback from your various stations. So you have taken your numbers. We start with number 1. Please introduce yourself, your medium, and your question.
Good afternoon. My name is Julian. First question, why is government, maybe the Secretary to the Government of the Federation or the Minister of Humanitarian to continue with the school feeding program? 2, maybe the Minister of you just told us that some diplomatic communities are being evacuated, but we have some Nigerians equally stranded abroad that want to be. The Diaspora Commission said there are some Togo and Ghana to bring them back. Thank you.
Number 2.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Abbas Adewale Juma from Daily Trust. The first question is for the chairman, the SGF. The civil society organizations and the Nigerian Union of Journalists, they will make case to be included in the Presidential Task Force Committee to make the job of the committee better, because they can make inputs and for the journalists to be included. So is there a window for the broadening in this time that every hands are needed. The second question is for the Honorable Minister of Health. Some governors tested positive. What becomes after their 14 days isolation, either for positive or for negative? Nigeria were also asking questions. Those who initially tested negative, does it mean they can be infected with the virus? So what comes after? Then Nigerians were also asking, they've seen government officials and technical and other experts using the face mask differently, especially those ones that have the double color, either white or green, and the check side. So they were asking questions. Maybe we can use this opportunity of telling Nigerians or
Good afternoon, ministers. My name and my question about vendors, and I'm wondering why you can shed more light on that. That would be appreciated, because we're having to send a society. And the next question. Feeding the school children, and I'm wondering program how to get to the children, plus the social register. The last time we got and unfortunately time has become the poverty capital. And finally, to the DG of the NCD. Well, usually the NCDC give us updated data as to how many confirmed cases we have, and also why is that so?
Good afternoon to the task force and colleagues. I am Itire, Nigerian Television Authority. Nigerians want the task to give clarification on whether they operate during this lockdown or for public transportation to convey providers of essential items and services. And my second question goes to the Minister, Honorable Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. Will Nigerians want you to categorize the vulnerable group that will benefit from the palliatives announced by Mr. President, especially against the backdrop that those mentioned seem to be those already captured in the social investment program? People are asking, what about the internally displaced persons and other vulnerable persons who might not be in the investment program? Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Honorable Ministers, Agency of Nigeria. Sir, many Nigerians want to testing for systematic patients. What is the risk of this to Nigeria response, given that asthmatic people can be carriers? Now, two, we all know 6 laboratories is meant to be for Lassa fever, and I can remember sometimes you say they cost so much, but you found out that most for this same laboratory Are you not telling them that to maintain it costs millions? Thank you very much.
Number 6.
Good afternoon, ministers. My name is Friday Kirigbe. I'm a reporter with Channels TV. I'm sure NCDC can provide an answer to my questions. The first question has to do with what the Minister of Health told us yesterday, that we have over 30,000 test kits in the country. I'd like to know, how many tests are we able to carry out on a daily basis? Then the second question, I'm asking it against the backdrop of a recent report from China that some of the patients that were discharged later tested positive. And we're having patients that are being discharged from the hospitals as we speak. Do we have a track to track their health status after they've been discharged? I'd like to get an answer to that. Also from what the Minister of Health, that will have 5 patients discharged. The Lagos State announced the discharge of 5 patients in Lagos State. And we know that we have patients that have been discharged before Lagos announced. I'd like clarification. When you said 5 patients have been discharged, are you talking about 5 patients that are discharged yesterday, or 5 patients that have been discharged all through? Thank you so much.
Number 7.
Good afternoon, the Presidential Task Force. My name is Nick. Question goes to the Minister of Health and the NCDC Director General. Well, there are allegations that a lot of have testing centers in the country. Yaba. And Nigerians are wondering why there are not enough testing kits on the ground, or why are they being come back. Secondly, my question has to do with the lockdown corner. Yes, sir, you're right. You said that there is a substantial compliance to the order. For those who have violated this order, what is the PTF or federal government is doing, or the security agency perhaps is doing as regards this? Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Honorable Minister and GGTS. My name is Femi Akonde. I'm a reporter with TVC. And my first question is to the Honorable Minister for Humanitarian Affairs. Since after the president lockdown, talking about palliative, have you actually hit the ground running? And again, palliatives, yes, we say to the vulnerable group, but there's this special group, persons with disabilities. I'm aware of Lagos State that this particular group of society are complaining that they don't have that easy access to the food banks and other palliatives put in place by government. The hardship during this period of the lockdown. I would specifically ensure that this group of society are catered for. And again, it's at the DG NCDC. We've seen some of the countries grappling with this scourge come up with estimates. They say maybe in the next 2 weeks we estimate that 500 people, for instance, would be infected. Do we have such estimates, and so that it will help us in planning? And sir, the SGF, sir, this lockdown, of course, it's causing so much hardship for Nigerians. And again, people are complaining. Staying at home is not comfortable. There is no light. The weather is very, very hot. Would you prevail on the Minister of Power to at least talk to electricity companies to make this stay at home at least a little comfortable for Nigerians? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the first wave of questions, and we shall be responding following on. The Minister of Health, supported closely by the NCDC, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs,
followed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the SGF on the ground, Minister of Health.
Thank you very much for the questions. I will answer the ones that are related to the sector and invite the DG of NCDC to answer some others and also add to the ones that I have answered. Now, with the question about what happens to you after 14 days, let me first of all start by saying that this is a new virus. It's called a novel virus, and a lot of its behavior is still being learned. No one already knows it to the fullest. So many things are being learned about it from various countries, and researchers are doing as much as possible to understand the behavior. For example, when do the symptoms begin? When are they at their peak? And what happens after their infection? All this that's more or less certain now is that the incubation period is usually within 14 days. I've also seen some reports which say that you can have late symptoms after 14 days, late, up to 20, I've read somewhere. But during that 40 days in isolation, if you tested negative, what it means is that you did not have the virus in you. But it does not mean that you will not have the virus with you again in any other time coming. So if you do a test again in the future, you might again actually test positive, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it came from your previous contact. So it's still a case in study, and it's also believed that there are certain antibodies you develop. How long those antibodies protect you, the humoral protection, is also not very clear yet. Some people have spoken of being able to extract plasma and refine it and use for treatment, but a lot of it is still under investigation. And if the NCDC can shed more light on it, or the WHO representative, we'll be glad to have that one updated here. Now, the other question about face mask, yes, there are also a lot of mixed messaging. There has been some message, a couple of people who claim that if everybody were using the face mask, then the incidence would drop, because one would not be able to transmit to the other, each would not be able to transmit to the other. Well, that's still a question, but there are also voices that question the very effectiveness of the mask at all. So again, if you look in the audience here, you see that it's not only here that you see face masks. There are about more than half of people there are also wearing masks. So it's a question of which way you lean at the moment, and I believe that with time, more information will come out. One information, generally as it is now, is countered by a group of other information that comes out. So those who decide to err on the side of caution wear masks, and others who feel very confident do not. I think that DG of CDC will add a few things to that. Now, with the question of patients who are discharged, yes, the total number, cumulative of everything since the beginning. So the 5 are the 5 that have been discharged from the Lagos treating point, where the which was announced yesterday. There are some that are due to be discharged. Quite a few are due, but the protocol is that they must test negative 2 times within 24 or 48 hours, and if they have not tested negative 2 times, they will still be held back until they're okay. The treatment usually takes a month if you are actually positive and you'll be treated up to 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, depending on how your body responds. Now, with the question of people who are being turned back, it is important not to mix the COVID-19 with something like HIV. So HIV, you can go know your status because you may have been infected one way or the other. With the COVID-19, it is different. It's not like HIV that you can catch so easily. The criteria are clear. One is that you must have been in a country which has high burden at any given time. Two is that you have had a close contact with someone who has come home and probably brought the disease with him from abroad. Now, third category of those community who are getting it in ways that are not quite clear is the one that's very concerning, which raises the specter of community transmission. So people who have never been abroad or haven't been abroad at all in time, have not been in contact with anyone who has been abroad, and then go to a center and want to test their status, a mistake. They don't many as we would like, but they are clogging the line in that you don't allow those who are real suspects to be tested, because the tests are full of people who really don't even fit the definition. I understand that the fear of coronavirus is so rampant now, so everybody feels it must be coronavirus. If you cough once, if you clear your throat once, you feel it's corona, or if you have you feel a little unwell, you think it must be corona. We must not use that as a yardstick. We must rely on objective criteria. The questions directed at the Ministry of Health.
Ladies and gentlemen of the press, very good questions. In terms of testing, I think the Minister has answered that very well. We need the systematic limitations in the numbers of people that can be tested. The focus of our effort is to improve that, increase that. That at the moment, we're 500 per day, or we have the capacity. By the end of this week, we'll be at 1,000 per day. Next week, we plan to take it to 1,500 a day, just by increasing the number of labs and also increasing the throughput of the labs that we have. So we are managing and improving the supply side. But at the same time, we need to reduce the demand side to those that really need it. So in Lagos, there's a big problem of a lot of anxiety, and everybody wants to get tested. And we need you to help us give this message to people. We have a case definition for COVID-19. Either you have respiratory symptoms plus travel, respiratory symptoms plus contact with a confirmed case, or respiratory symptoms of unknown explanation. So if you have cancer or something, 3 groups, i.e. you must have symptoms. Tested, the less we have the capacity to test those that really need it. These people that really need it will be transmitting into the community, and more people will get infected. So there's a consequence, not just for you as an individual, but for the rest of society. So we need to get to those that we need to get to. And by testing those that don't need it, the worried well, we that need it, and then the outbreak continues. So there's a price to pay for testing all these asymptomatic individuals. I think the question from regarding laboratories, yes, we have the quickest set of laboratories to convert for COVID testing have been the laboratories we've been over the last few years for Lassa. More. This is not just the federal responsibility, the responsibility of all the state governments. We are going to work extra hard. We're going to increase the number of labs a few months, weeks and months. But the quick solution is not a new lab. The quick solution is how we can increase the throughput in existing labs and repurpose some other. Now the question around tracking. One of the biggest lessons we learned from the Ebola outbreak is the use of technology. And that is one aspect that we have rolled out a system called SOMAS. is and which of them don't have any link. So these are things that we learned from the Ebola response, and Dr. Faisal, who led that response, can brief you more at any time response and how we have now learned from all of that, and we'd already rolled this system out in 22 states across the country before this outbreak. So this is work that was going on. We have now accelerated the need to. The Honorable Minister has already answered the there's no such thing as a status. This is unique to HIV, where you can be infected and there are no symptoms. Therefore, you have to go and test infected. Most other, not symptoms. And it's those symptoms that will lead you into looking for diagnosis and ultimately the question about scenarios and estimates, absolutely, we have a lot presented to the Presidential Task Force. Like the Minister always says, we prepare for the worst, but we plan for the best. So we keep working very hard. We know we don't do anything. We know what the number of cases, the presumed number of cases if our measures. We know what to expect if we're 100% effective. It's based on this that we'll measure the effectiveness of the response. But these are not estimates that we necessarily will be sharing in public, because they change from day to day as our response proceeds. Finally, on the question relating to the science of it is not completely clear. So some countries have gone one approach, the others have gone another approach. We will continue looking at the evidence with our colleagues in WHO. The guidance at the moment is those that are most at risk, and those that are most at risk of coming into contact with people infected are those that should wear masks. However, there's new emerging evidence, and we'll keep looking at this, and we might change our strategy. The key thing to note is for masks to be effective, at a population basis, we will have to implement the wearing of masks among everyone. It's really strategy on mask wearing. We have to be sure that we provide that, or at least enable access to the mask to implement that. So for now, we haven't done everyone to do his own risk assessment and decide on whether they want to wear one or not. And as the evidence comes together, we will make a decision both on the evidence and secondly on our ability to provide every Nigerian, or at least enable access to these masks to everyone. So I hope I've answered all the questions relating to the response on the health sector side. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, press, my colleagues. Let me start with the question around we have started deploying these relief materials to the affected states. It is important that we know that this from the general to take at least 3 locations that these food materials we have started doing that regards on the question around the directive by His Excellency that we should continue with the school feeding program, and we should liaise with the state governors on the modalities that we use to take this intervention. We're exploring different options, either by nutritious meal to pupils of primary 1 to 3. And performance improving nutrition among school and boosting also the local economy, because by doing the program we engage the local traders or aggregators that will books for them to cook. So it's a whole cycle of yeah. We're currently feeding over 8